this moment. So we are recording and it's Monday. Welcome to Art 117. It is Monday, May 24th. And so we have 2 weeks left of school, 2 weeks plus finals week. And we're not going to have a final exam in this class. So don't worry about a final exam. The final exam kind of is the final project. So we are now definitely transitioning from doing something that is about figuring out what size and shape of a chair that we're going to make, to drawing it out on paper, and then trying to figure out what the measurements might be for a scale model and a scale drawing of this thing. And then finally actually building a scale model of the chair that you're going to build life size. The last thing that we're going to do is build that life size chair. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit today. So last week I went to the furniture stores and I got lots and lots of cardboard. Probably not enough. So I'm going to go out again this week, probably tomorrow, because I've got some time tomorrow, with a pickup truck or a trailer or something. I'm going to head to the mattress stores and see if I can get the same amount of cardboard from the mattress stores. I have begun the process of building, let's see, I'm going to stay on camera with my little finger here, building different workstations for everybody all the way around Eden Hall. So right now in the gallery, I have 2 workstations set up with big tables and lots of tools and glue and stuff for 2 people, at least, to be able to work inside the Eden Hall gallery. I've got 3 workstations in the drawing studio set up with tools and glue and everything, cardboard, the works. So 3 people can work in the drawing studio. I've got at least one, set up here in Eden 5, which is the sculpture studio, so that people can work there. And I have this outdoor workstation that is on the table on the west doorway to Eden Hall, so that there's a 6th workstation right there. So I've got 6 workstations set up, and I got to try to figure out how many of you are going to come in and actually use this stuff. If nobody wants to come in here because you're trying to stay away from virus and stuff, I understand. At that point, I will check out sets of tools to you so that you can take them home and work with them at home. But otherwise, I have space here, and I've got you guys all spread out throughout the building so that there's only like 2 or 3 people in each room. And I figure that that will be fine. But from now until the end of next week, for the next 10 to 14 days, we need to be like building chairs at a workstation. So we are now going to take everything we've learned from planning and designing and building our 3-dimensional scale model of our chair and apply it to the full size thing. And so I'm going to be doing some demonstrations along those lines. Does anybody have any questions before I get really crazy and stand up and move furniture around in front of you guys? Any questions about making the full size model? Or if you've gotten timed out and haven't been able to upload your thing yet because the assignment closed over the weekend, please let me know, either here in the class or email me so that I can reopen the assignment for you. I haven't had time to go through the assignments and look at everything yet, but I will do that today and tomorrow in the fullness of time, so that by Wednesday we are all building full-size chairs right here in Eden Hall in the studio, or at your remote location at home, Madison, Tennessee. So something like that. So
well, I can come in if you have an outside
okay.
Station.
You can use the outside station. I had you in mind when I decided to leave that table out there and build out there. Even on a day like today, when there's supposed to be showers and rain throughout the day, this thing is under cover. It's under a roof so that you can stay dry while you're working outdoors. It's a little chilly out there, You'll want to have, a sweatshirt or jacket or something on, but a person can't even work outdoors. So that'll be great. Thanks, Maddie. Would you guys mind if I tried to do a little bit of a demo for you guys today? How could you mind? How could anybody mind? So here I'm gonna change my video camera to the little bit larger camera so that we can see the top of my head here. And I haven't turned on the digital projector, but all of this is not going to be digital today. So I think I'm going to be pretty good here. I'm just going to shove this forward a little bit and see if I can make this work. Okay, so I have another table that has been my workstation today this weekend that I've been working on. And so I'm going to carefully slide this over because I have a project that I've got on the go here. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to come right up to the camera and talk just a little bit more about this little problematic dodecahedron. That's the name of this thing. It's a dodecahedron. It's 20-sided thing. Those of you who play Dungeons and Dragons and other kinds of things that have a 20-sided dice, this is basically your 20-sided dice that we're working with here. And so we had analyzed this thing last week. I talked about it having being made up of several full-size pentagonal pyramids that I kind of figured out. So we've got the 5 triangles put together into a pentagon. And so you get this kind of a pentagon-shaped or pentagon-based pyramid concept. And so I was trying to figure out how to build that over the weekend. And so I came up with this concept right here. This is your 5 triangle pentagon thing made out of triangles that are equilateral triangles with 2-foot sides, 24 inches on each side on the triangle. And so I've got one put together and I'm going to put the other one together for you guys today. So the idea is, okay, smart guy, how do you do this? How do you scale something up from a piece of cardstock that's 1/12 the size to something that's full size? Well, with this one, it was really difficult because let me set this down for a second and talk a little bit about what the thinking process was. So as you recall, I've been building boxes and box forms to create my modules, and basically every single box form, is folded and it has glue tabs on it that glue the thing together. And I've been concealing my glue tabs on the inside surfaces of the box so that they're not something that is ugly and is something that's visually distracting on the outside of the box. I'm a designer after all. I'm not just some person who builds boxes for a living, but I'm trying to build beautiful sculptural shapes. And so I want to hide as much of the construction and stuff as possible. So all my glue tabs are on the inside as I've been building my box. Okay, so that's one way to do it. When I had to come up with the idea or with a solution to how am I going to work with these things, some of my previous experience comes into play. I have built geodesic domes before, so I did all of the calculations to figure out what the lengths of all of the different segments in a geodesic dome is going to be, and had to carefully lay those out, carefully manufacture them. And still, if you're off even 1/8 of an inch on a couple of things, your error starts to multiply itself over the course of the entire thing. And so usually I had to make the attachment points somewhat flexible so that as I put this thing together, I would also be able to have a little bit of flexibility so that I could kind of cheat and make things sort of go together, even if I had to bend it a little bit or move it a little bit. So as I was thinking about glue tabs for this thing, the first thing I thought of was build this thing laying down on a table like this with each segment or side laying flat on the table and then gluing my glue tabs together on the insides and trying to construct this thing. But the more I thought about it, the more I wanted this to just be something that was holding itself together, but somewhat flexible. I don't know if you guys can see me flexing this thing, but somewhat flexible so that when I start putting these modules together, and if I have to close a 1-inch gap or something, I can bend it and twist it a little bit and get some flexibility out of it. So that is how I came up with assembling this from the outside instead of from the inside. And I used a water-based packing tape for the outside. And so I'm going to do that as a demonstration. I'm going to set this one down. I'm going to pull my table over here. Now I've blocked up my escape route here to my emergency exit, so please don't start a fire or have an earthquake while I'm doing this. Okay? All right. So I'm going to carefully bring my work table in here so that you can see what I'm doing. All right. And I'm going to need to have a little space in here so I can get around to the other side too. So this is my work table. And so to kind of assemble this thing and try to get it close together, I came up with the idea of actually having the bricks come in here and be little stops so that I could figure out the spacing of this thing and figure out how all the vertices, all of the top corner points of my triangles could come together at one point. And can I hold this thing together and be able to see this whole thing so I could check all my fits and everything before assembly? And then could I somehow hold this together so that it won't fall apart while I'm trying to glue everything together? So the answer became taking all of the triangles and just kind of laying them up against each other and carefully fitting everything together with just kind of little friction fits to make all of this kind of go together, and then using the water-based tape to do that. So Kelsey, I'm going to come over there and get my my thing, that tray right there, and I'm going to bring it into the camera so that people can see what I'm up to here, because I'm a little crazy. I found over the weekend that working with triangles is terribly tedious, that you have to be absolutely perfect in your measuring, and still as perfect as you think you are measuring, laying these things out and cutting them out, you're still going to be off by a 1/16 of an inch or something. And as you are off, then the error, of course, multiplies itself as you start putting together all of these smaller units. And so I don't know how this chair is going to go together. Right now, all of my points are not really lining up here. So I'm hoping that when I have a pentagon base for these things, that I'll be able to move stuff around enough so that they will work. Anyway, let's use a water-based packing tape to do this with. I'm going to have to get that carpenter square too. Sorry about that. I just have to get this off of this table. And basically, this is a carpenter's square. A carpenter's square is made out of metal, usually steel or aluminum, and it's about 16 inches by 24 inches. And carpenters use these in the construction of houses, or at least we used to before we had computers and stuff. This is a super handy thing because it's a steel right angle square, we call it. And so it's going to really help you cut square things and measure and make sure that you have squared edges on your rectangles and stuff that you're working with. I'm also just using it as a measuring device. So I'm going to set it down here and just take my tape. I forgot how I was doing this now. Take my tape to make my 24-inch or so long pieces of tape that I can then do this with. And I think I'm just going to cut a bunch of them. I've got 5 that need to be put together. And so I'm kind of eyeballing this to cut out things that are about 24 inches long or so. And if they're too long, I can always trim the tape later. And if they're too short, that's too bad. It'll be fine. But I am in the ballpark with these segments. This is kind of a nice tape because it also has a little bit of string embedded in it for a little bit of reinforcement, which is always nice. So there's about my 5 pieces of tape. Now this is a tape that has a gummed side on it that you have to activate by getting it wet. So I've got this little tray here. It's kind of like a photographic darkroom tray from back in the day when we had photographic darkrooms. And I've got a little bit of water in there. And so with the sponge and kind of pulling the tape through the water, and then I'm kind of pulling off any of the excess water off of here, I have pre-moistened this thing so that I can take it over to my pyramid and carefully put it on the middle of my seam and try not to knock my whole pyramid down when I'm gluing this into place. And so you kind of put it on here and then you massage it into place and kind of massage out all of the air bubbles. And so that's wonderful. Let's do that again. That was so much fun. Let's do that again. I'm kind of starting in the middle of the tape and just using my sponge to push it underwater, just like when you're trying to drown a baby. What did I just say? Oh, that was terrible. Look at you guys. You hang out with such a bad man here. Okay. So I'm kind of squeegeeing off the excess water and then bringing my pre-moistened tape over here to glue the next side together. And so I'm going to lay it down carefully there and try to center the ridge on the tape on the ridge on the tape. And it's wet enough and it's not sticky enough so I can actually slide it sideways and move it into position so that I can get my 2 sides to become relatively well put together. And that's 2 of them right there. One of the things that I was worried about is if I was folding this together from the inside and putting glue tabs on it on the inside, that I wouldn't have my edges tight. And so that tends to then multiply any a part that I'm off a little bit on my calculations and stuff. So this allows me to lay my edges really right up tight against each other and really be able to glue things together tightly so that I can minimize the amount that I'm off in my assembly and the measuring and cutting of all these pieces. Because, you know, as you're putting this stuff together, and it's not so bad for the box forms, but when you're doing other methods of construction, you can get into a lot of trouble really fast. I've got a nice little side right here that needs some tape, and so I'm just going to kind of reach in here from this side and get this glued down and push all of this stuff together. And it sure is nice to have something clamping it, holding it in place. These bricks are super heavy. They're high density fire brick. You know, they weigh about 5 pounds a piece. And so they do a really good job holding things in place while I'm gluing it up. And so we just continue the process. I still want you guys to notice that underneath all of this stuff, I do have one sacrificial piece of cardboard on the table. That's what I've been cutting on to cut out all of my shapes and make all of my cuts. And as we set up our workstations, I want you guys to take one piece of your cardboard, usually the crappiest piece of cardboard, and use that as a sacrificial piece of cardboard so that you're not going to be putting all kinds of cut marks into the table that you're going to be using for this, because I don't want my tables to be completely cut to hell during this process. I want them to be relatively unscathed. And so we need to make sure that we've got this sacrificial piece of cardboard down there to work with. Like, I would sure like to be able to pull this apart and make this go together just a little bit better. Just like that. I'm using my fingernails and my fingers to kind of like pry these pieces together to get them to come together better. for this last piece because I want it to be tight too. Okay, so I'm still kind of pressing down and massaging the tape down flat because it kind of wants to come up a little bit in this process. And so we kind of want to press it down good. I think I just got joined by somebody else for the party, so that's nice. Thank you very much. I got one more piece to go here. So you won't necessarily all be using this kind of paper packing tape to put your projects together. I wanted to show it to you because it is a resource that I have here for you to put your stuff together. I think it's sometimes nice to do weird joinery projects like the one I'm trying to do. I happened to use this to tape seal all of the joints on the chair that I made last year. I found that to be a rather tedious and kind of an overbuild kind of a thing, but I also wanted that chair to be a permanent chair in the lobby here in Eden Hall. And so I wanted to put in a little bit extra work on that chair because I thought I wanted it to last for 10 or 20 years. So I taped all of the seams on that chair like this. I also, on that chair, finished it off by, I went out and bought some shellac. I bought some orange shellac. Now, shellac is a different kind of an animal from any other kind of product for sealing or painting a surface because shellac is alcohol based, and it is based on a whole bunch of little bugs, little beetles that are collected, no, not the beetles, but the excretions that they make on the bark of trees in the Far East, like in India or someplace, and all of those excretions are pried off of the trees and then cooked down and mixed with alcohol to create shellac. And shellac is this wonderful water-based, I'm sorry, waterproof material that is, it's organic and it's alcohol-based. I have shellac on my wood floors at home because my house was built in 1950. And so 70 years ago, they used shellac on hardwood floors. And so shellac is a really interesting old school thing to use as a possible thing. And when you're working with cardboard and you're a little bit concerned about water and not wanting to get too much water or other things involved that are going to stretch the paper and kind of give you not good results when you're trying to paint or finish or waterproof a surface, I thought that maybe shellac would be a good thing to start with. So I played with shellac on the chair that I have out in the lobby that maybe some of you have seen. So I have been able to assemble and glue together this thing, and now I have to leave it to dry, and this probably will take at least an hour for all of the water to dry out of this and for all of the tape to become strong before I can take away all of the supports on this thing and be able to pick this up. So I'm going to push my table back out of the frame here so that we can talk again, because we like to talk. So this goes over here. My chair comes back, and one more time, the finished product for my chair is going to be 2 of these. And so these pentagonal pyramids, as I'm calling them, become the 2 main elements of this chair right here, because I've got, whoops, I got to change cameras here. So changing cameras so you can see me. No, changing cameras. I'll use this camera. What the heck? This is a good camera to talk about this stuff. So I've got one pentagon right here, one full-size pentagon pyramid on this side of the chair, and I've got the other full-size complete pentagon pyramid on this side of the chair. And the 2 of them kind of come together in the back of the chair. Let's see, where are we? Just like this. So here's the bottom of the chair and here's the top of the chair. And the two of them are going to share an edge. They're going to share one edge of contact between these two triangles. On the front of the chair, I have this kind of bridge element here, which is going to be three triangles that I'm going to paper tape together. And then, of course, this is the bottom of the chair again. I'll be able to attach this to the sides of the two pentagons. And then I will have a freestanding object that is, let's see, open on the bottom. This is the bottom of it so that I can reach inside to do reinforcement and gluing and stuff through the bottom of the chair. And the top of the chair, when I finally get this all put together, will then have a great big opening on the top where the seat has to be formed and fashioned. And then I will be carefully trying to figure out how to fit myself a custom-made seat and kind of hang it into this opening in the top of this dodecahedron, so that I wind up with something that has slightly less than 20 sides. I think it actually has about 15 triangles that I'm working with right now. And it's got this space in it that's large enough for the, let's see, for the, not that one, let's see, for the seat. And so it will sit, it sits on the ground, let's see, like this. This is the orientation and space that it has. You're looking at it from the side. As I rotate it towards you, the seat comes into view like that. As I rotate it away from you, we're looking at a side again. And as I rotate one more time, rotation, we're looking at the back of the chair right here. So this is the back of the chair where you really get the sense of the geometry of the dodecahedron. And then we are cheating and creating like a slung seat in the middle of it. So that's my little project that I'm working on. I've kind of abandoned this chair because I built this chair once already, so I don't really have to build it again. But I could, you know, in a pinch, make some elements for this chair and assemble them. So I can do that as kind of a demonstration of how to put modular pieces together too. I already built the seat for this, and I could definitely build a seat back and put those two together so that at least we had the good start of another lounge chair. I suppose I should finish it because it is something that I can leave in Eden Hall, and it'll be another one of those crazy artistic designing lounge chairs that will last forever, and people will think they're wonderful and all of that. I got the gift of a whole bunch of kind of semi-soft foam. It's not really a foam rubber, it's a foam plastic packing material. You know what? I'm going to go get a piece of it. Everybody, wait a second, give me 20 seconds to go get a piece and I'll come back with it. So you're thinking, wow, what a great gift. Somebody gave you a bunch of junk packing material. But in this case, they were moving from the East Coast, from Pennsylvania to the West Coast. And they had a whole bunch of family heirloom type furniture packed up by a special moving company that specializes in all this stuff. And so this is a really interesting material. It is a closed cell plastic foam. It's not quite a foam rubber, but it has a little bit of give to it. And it's interesting because one side is kind of a finished side that's smooth, and the other side is really kind of a little bit more textury. And not only does it come in these strips, well, it comes in any kind of shape. They cut them to pack up all of this furniture, but I've got them in large pieces too. So, you know, you can, the idea is that we could make seat cushions out of these things to actually pad the seat portion of your chair. Or we could maybe have strips like this that could be glued onto the arms of your chair to have padded arm surfaces, just the top surface for your chair. And so it would be possible, and I do have a whole bunch of this stuff, that most of you could actually fabricate and fashion cushions for your chair, both a back cushion and a seat cushion, and also arm cushions for the arms of your chair. I've been able to run this stuff through the bandsaw here in Eden Hall, and so we can measure it and cut it to any size we want. And it's super easy to work with. And then the last thing we could do is glue it onto the seat surfaces if you wanted to have some kind of a cushion. This is kind of a poor man's cushion, but heck, it's flexible, it's soft, and it has kind of a sealed surface on it, and it can work quite nicely as a cushion for a cardboard chair. If you've been into Eden Hall in the last couple of weeks, sniffing around or looking at my stuff in the lobby there, getting yourself some pieces of cardstock so that you can actually build your own chair model out of the cardstock. You might have looked over at my cardboard chair that's in the lobby, and it is sitting over there with a couple of pieces of that foam stuff on it, as because I've been experimenting with that stuff as a seat cushion for both the seat and the seat back. So I've got that stuff on this surface of the chair as well as on the seat back. And so that's a lot of fun and something that you guys can play with when you get to that point. I've purchased about $100 worth of tools and materials here. I got all brand new sharp razor blades for the knives. And as you guys use these knives, I want you to be super careful so that you don't cut yourself. The whole idea of this project was that you would learn how to use these materials and tools, but also learn how to use them safely so that you keep your fingertips and all of your soft, fleshy body parts away from the path of this knife as you're trying to cut with this knife. So we're going to use, aluminum yardsticks, aluminum rulers, or the wider surface of the carpenter's square as a straight edge, and you're going to run this knife blade up against that straight edge to make your straight cuts, and you're going to try to keep your fingers back from the edge of the thing you're cutting on. So when you're holding on to something like this, your fingertips are going to want to be in the middle of the thing, away from the edge, so that when you're running the knife along that edge, you're not going to be cutting into the edges of your fingers. I don't want to have to take you guys to the emergency room. I don't want to have to write some kind of a incident report about the injury that happened, in Eden Hall. So we're going to try to be as careful and safety conscious as we can while we're using these tools. But we're going to be using razor knives, craft knives in here, and then glue to glue things together. And so this is about as low tech as we can possibly get, because everything else we're using is just some form of a measuring tool. So we're measuring out stuff, and we are drawing the lines or using snap lines to snap our lines onto the cardboard, and then we're cutting along those lines, using a straight edge, metal straight edge, and the craft knife to do this. I'm having a really hard time getting this last craft knife back together, so I'm going to have to work on this for a while later off camera. But I do have a huge variety of tools. I bought lots and lots of wood glue so that you guys can glue your chairs together. It does take at least half a bottle of wood glue just to assemble one cardboard chair, I have found. And so we're going to be going through the wood glue pretty good here. I've been talking, prattling on for about 30 minutes. Does anybody have any questions at this point about the scaling up portion of this thing, trying to go from scale model to full-size chair? Because that's the trick here, is trying to be able to go from scale model and scale drawing to full-size chair, and being able to make these elements life size and then assemble them together. In the fullness of time, in the next 2 weeks, you guys will be creating life-size cardboard chairs that I fully expect you will figure out how to support yourself and your butt weight in them so that they don't collapse when you sit on them, so that you have a working full-size lounge chair or task chair that you can use at home and from now on as your own homemade, handcrafted cardboard chair. So I'm going to pause here and ask if there's any questions. On Wednesday, I would like you guys to come to Eden Hall and be totally ready to start building cardboard chairs. Bring your plans. We will assign you guys to different workstations so that you guys have an assigned workstation and you're going to be working in the same place for the next week or two, however long it takes you to build your cardboard chair. And we're going to be working together. So there's going to be very few of these things anymore. I'm not going to be doing online presentations very much anymore, unless there are some of you that just don't show up because you have to build this chair at home or you have to do this asynchronously, so you can't show up at 9 o'clock in the morning on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I guess for you guys, I will have to continue doing some kind of a online check-in and to make sure that everybody's on the same page with all this stuff. But otherwise, I'm going to be here working with the people who show up from 9 o'clock in the morning for as long as you can stay. You can stay through 11 o'clock, which is our normal 2-hour lecture lab class period. You can stay longer if you want. You can be here all damn day if you want, building and working on your cardboard chair. But I can tell you that it's going to take a minimum of at least 6 or 8 hours of measuring and cutting and gluing stuff together to get your chair together. And you might have to break that over time so that you have time to put chair pieces, tabs and stuff together and glue them and let them sit undisturbed for an hour or two so that they can glue completely before you unclamp them or take the clamping weight off of them, like the bricks and stuff. So this process takes time, and there's going to have to be like maybe a day interval in between each thing while your joints are gluing up and becoming strong and solid before you can go on to the next step of your construction process. So there's that to factor in. That's why we're going to be building chairs for the next 2 weeks. So I said that, and I said it again, and I burned more time. I'm looking over at the participants list just to see if anybody has a question, if any of the mics are coming unmuted, that whether you might have a question or not. I'm looking to my classroom participant here in the class to see if she has a question. She's looking at me like I'm drunk or something. No, of course I don't have a question, Kelsey says. Don't ask me to talk in front of other people. So I wouldn't do that. So I'm ready to build cardboard chairs. If you guys are ready, we can do this. And in fact, if you're ready today, you can come over here right now and start kind of moving into your own workstation and setting it up the way you want to. The first thing to do with the workstation is to find the crappiest piece of cardboard in the pile of cardboard and kind of cut that open and lay it out on top of the tabletop so that you can protect the entire tabletop with a sacrificial piece of cardboard, because that's what you're going to be making all of your cuts, your cardboard cuts on top of that piece. You're going to lay another piece of cardboard on top of the sacrificial piece of cardboard, and then you're going to be cutting down through your cardboard, and your knife blade is going to go into the top layer of the sacrificial piece of cardboard, and that's what keeps my tabletops from getting completely chopped up by knife blades. So, if you wanted to come in and just do that much of setup for yourself today or Wednesday, that'd be fantastic. But we are moving into the full-size construction process. I will be a floater. I can float around and help you guys figure out how to do things like using the chalk lines or how to lay out your pieces, on a big piece of cardboard and lay out all of your lines and stuff so that we can mark them for cutting. And then I can help with the cutting. I can help demonstrate cutting and all of that stuff. And once you get up and running with this, then you will be totally self-sufficient and you'll be able to figure it all out. Laying it out, marking it up, cutting it, and assembling stuff. And we'll be fantastic. It'll be great. I still see, nobody raising their hands or unmuting their mics over the participants list. And so I'm going to say that it's good enough. You have seen a demonstration today, and come on in this morning if you want to. I am going to be turning my attention to bronze casting right now. And I'm going to go out and fire up a furnace and start some bronze casting. But I will be here just in case you have a question or something. Otherwise, I'll see you on Wednesday to start the chair construction process. So until then, thank you for coming. I'm trying to say goodbye, and I did say goodbye. I said goodbye. Something bad happened. No, there it is. Okay. I couldn't get to the end button because there was an advertisement over the end